And welcome to Making a Viking Sword Part 5. I'm going to go over a little bit of techniques for texturing on this one. What I've done is I've opened up a few of these that I've made previously. I have out and about online. What I want to do with these is just show you the various layers. These are all made with the same principles as the flood filling and making little selections and repeating them from part 4. So don't get discouraged when you see the details. We'll go over that. What I want to find are my layers here. We're going to start with one of these stripe layers. This is done. Let's change it to normal. You'll see that they're solid white. Same thing, it's just done with a selection. It's been flood filled. We hit Control T for our free transform, and holding Shift you can snap it to an angle. If you don't hold Shift, if you need to fine tune it to follow a line, you can do that as well. Control Z. And then we take those and all we do is drag on the move tool, using Alt and Shift and then dragging, you just make duplicates of them. What we end up with is, for the wireframe here, let me turn this back down to a soft light and color. You can see where the quillions and the pommel sections are set out. And what I've done with that is just gone ahead and dragged out a stripe. This is going to look like a silver inlay when it's done. And once I've gotten those out, just merge them and trim them. You'll notice the shadow layer here. Again, if you want to set up your light domes and bake in your lighting into a texture, that's fine. I know many people in the industry who follow that process religiously, and it works pretty well. I personally prefer to make my own custom brushes and do my own shadows. So what we're going to do here is, once we have our layers set up, say if you're doing an inlay stripe like that, I have one layer here that's set to soft light. Let me hide the color. And what that does is barely gives you an indication that there's something different going on from the background. And then this one is color to make sure it's completely gray. Now while I'm building these, I do all three. Your diffuse, the normal map, and specular, I take all three into account. So you'll see things like this: S, M, N, D. We have D for diffuse, and the best place to show this is on the blade. The blade is done with a very low contrast filter render clouds. It's then got noise added onto it and a little bit of grunge. So what we have is, we turn off the diffuse and you can see this layer, and it's dark. It doesn't look anything like metal. We add the diffuse, it's just a slight blur. For the normal map, you do image, adjustments, brightness, contrast, drag the contrast all the way down so it's completely smooth. Now this will give you a very nice smooth polished metal look, but also when you're compressing to DDS files, if you're using an environment map for reflections, if this has bumps and wiggles in it and you compress it to DDS, the normal map would usually be DXT5. If you compress it down, you're going to end up with some pixelations that show really, really bad in the environment mask. So the way to avoid that is to give the normal map very smooth where that blade is. Then we have our specular and environment, which I use M for. Now this is done in 2 layers so I can fine tune and adjust them separately. We have the outside hue for the blade shine, and then our grunge and dirt, which goes all the way down. This grunge and dirt layer, say if we have a new image, I'm going to flood fill this with white. You can do it with black either way. Filter, where is it? Stylize. I can never remember where it is. I guess it's because I so rarely use it. I'm looking for fibers. I just can never remember which. I've been using this program for over a decade, and that particular one, good lord. Okay, we'll find it. Okay, get back to what we were doing here. Filter, render. Clouds is the one you can use. If you make a 4096 by 4096 of this and then scale it down to 1024 by 1024, that one will give you a very nice effect to use on top of a dark gray layer. You change it to soft light, add a little bit of noise to it, and that's what you're going to end up with. What we're going to do for the down the blade for an environment mask is fibers. Now you can randomize this until you get a chunk or a piece that you like. Doesn't really matter. Select all, copy, close. I don't need it. I have a habit of doing that for every one. So we just drag these. Now you note that those do not blend. You have to keep that in mind. What I'm going to do is drag it close to the top. Now we can take this with an eraser, using the brackets to make it larger or smaller, and blend it in by erasing the seam, and then just a couple of strokes through it. Or another way to do it, delete that layer, take this one, Control T for free transform, grab that handle and just stretch it up. Since it's just supposed to be scratch marks down the length of the blade, like polishing or whatnot, this works. Then you would change that. Let me turn these other guys off here real quick. Change that to a soft light, and you can see how it's starting to, all this is doing, this is for light refraction, light reflection. So you're going to have spots that are a little bit dull and spots that are shinier. For the tops, you can just take a box, drag it over it, edit, transform, warp, and grab inside and just bring those in. And what that'll do is give you the illusion of this following around. And that's about it for actual pixel. Oh, it is actual pixels. Deselect. Alright, I want to get to the specular map in a moment, but I'm going to take a look in here. You'll notice how this rusty area has chunks of dark red, bits of green. Again, let's say a new layer or a new image. It doesn't matter what color it has in it. This clouds takes over that. Now, before we add noise to this, Magic Wand is not the best tool in the world, but for this it works. If you right click Magic Wand, hit color range, this is your initial color, start with one of the light ones, and then you can hit the plus sign once it gets done. I have several other programs running in the background, so it takes a little while. Oh, there's cataracts for you. Alrighty. We can add a little bit more to that. You can also subtract anything you don't want. That should be good. You tell that okay. These are hard edges, so go in. This is outside of your selection. Once the icon changes, that's inside. Right mouse click again, hit feather. You only need to have this set to 1 pixel. Hit copy, Control C, and then paste, Control V. And now we have that particular gray. Then we're going to go back to our base layer, right mouse click, color range. Let's grab the dark, drag a line through, tell that okay, right mouse click, feather, Control C, Control V. Now we have our dark spots and the middle. So what we're going to do with the middle, Control U, colorize, give it a bit of an orangey color. That's good enough. We're going to leave this one its color. It's just plain gray. Control U on the top layer, colorize, and we're going to make it kind of yellow. And you can play around with these because you can spend years on them. Now for time's sake, I'm just going to copy this like all, Control A, Control C, Control V, edit, transform, rotate 90 degrees. Normally I would build a whole new layer. V 50, oh, 0. We'll go through our blending modes. Darken should work. Filter noise, add noise. Now this is going to give you a film grain look. Notice it's up at 12. We want to drop that down to about 2 or 3. We're going to leave it on Gaussian. That makes more clustered chunks, more randomized chunks. Monochromatic, it will mimic the colors that it's going on top of. Now what we're going to do is something that this will actually break. Now at the moment this is a seamless texture. It's not going to be in a second. Select all, copy, paste, filter. We're going to do noise again, only this time we're going to jack it up to about 8. And filter, blur, motion blur. All this is going to do is add another texture layer onto it. And distance is how far the pixels are going to stretch. We'll do about 20. Angle, your angle can be just about anything, as long as it's not straight across or straight up and down. You can actually do that too, but it's just if you do it at like a 42, 58, it tends to come out a little better. Now this is not seamless. If I were to do filter, other, and offset this image 512 by 512, we zoom in here, you can see that seam really bad. That's where a lot of people get into trouble with that part. So let's undo the offset. This is how we fix that. Control T for free transform. We're going to click the chain here in the middle, which links height and width. Click once in width, and then I'm just going to scale that up to about 4. Hit enter. Now we go filter. It's still not seamless yet. Distort, ocean ripple, Oh, and it does the huge thing that's way off screen. Doesn't matter. Okay, I'm going to leave this on its default setting, whatever it is. In this case, it's ripple magnitude 6, ripple size 15. Alright, it's back to seamless. Now we're going to follow through and screen, color dodge. Soft light will work. Edit, transform. Oh, you know what? Filter, offset. There we go. And offset it. What I'm trying to do is get the texture a little more random here. So, Control Shift E, that merges visible. Now we go to image adjustments, brightness, contrast. I'm going to drag that down 38 and then kill the contrast some, and you'll note little by little it's starting to come into looking similar to that. And then with a brush I'm going to grab kind of a yellowish color, yellow-green. I'm going to change this to, oh, no, I'm not. Now the brush I'm using is a custom brush. It's very spotty. It's great for this. Control Shift N and then enter for a new layer. And we're just putting a few spots in. We filter, offset again, that way the splotches that you put in remain seamless. Now we can change this to hue, saturation, color. Yep, we'll leave it at color. And you just mess around until you get something similar to this, and then darken it again, add more noise. Keep playing with it until it gives you something decent. Let me zoom this out. Now our normal map, let's go to this. Also, you'll note these are twice as tall as they are wide. This was done with the method described in 4, changing the view and the UVW map editor window, and then taking all of the polys and scaling it out twice the size, then scaling them down uniformly and fitting them all back in. This is done with that method. You'll note that there is very little difference here between the stripes themselves and the body of the pommel. And the reason for this is, since it's the normal map, I just want to give a slight hint of it being inlaid. They're very gently blurred. You never want a solid hard right edge or solid hard color, hard edge color in your normal map, because it won't work. You need to have some kind of a gradient going from one value to the next. Otherwise it doesn't pop like it's supposed to. Again, on the normal map, very, very plain for the blade. These are toned down where the inlay is not, so it still looks like it's relatively smooth. And the wood, you take your wood texture, image adjustments, brightness, contrast, drag the contrast down to about 88, negative 88, and it'll give you this type of effect. That way the wood doesn't look like it's horrendously cut up. It'll look fairly well polished and worn. Now if you want these to pop, say if you wanted your inlay to stand out, we're on soft light here. Let's change it to normal. It should be pure white and 0. Notice how the edges are just barely blurred. That would look terrible. So we would take that layer and filter, blur, Control F until we have a decent gradient. That should be good. That right there is what you're going to look for your normal maps, because that will show. This will stand out really, really high. This will be sunk in nice and deep. I'm going to go ahead and undo that. Zoom out. And then on the specular map, we want the blade to be pretty shiny. Your environment map's going to be pretty similar to this. This will give a decent sheen to the blade. Again, all your light reflections are coming from your specular map, so keep your blades, your steel parts, fairly dark in your diffuse textures and your regular texture. That way, like on here, zoom in one more time, our silver inlay stripes are going to be nice and shiny, and the iron pommel and quillions, the iron part will be dark, or not dark but dull. Same with the wood. This wood in particular is kept fairly dull. Now you'll notice also there's a lot more distortion going on in here than there is on the diffuse, and you can take advantage of that. They look like polishing marks, cut marks, dirt, things like that stuck into them. You can do all of that on your specular and environment maps. I'm going to go ahead and close these and show you a little bit on the Ulfbert sword I did last year. We have our normal map, environment map, specular, and our diffuse. Now, this is when you want to get fancy. You'll notice that overall there's dirt and crud. I went outside and basically just took a picture of the sidewalk and brought it in, made a seamless texture out of it by doing the offset and then cloning out the seams, and I use that for grunge. I've done that I don't know how many hundreds of times. It works. If you don't have a camera, there are tons of sites online that have things like that for free. And then all of these stripes, zigzags, all of this stuff is done the exact same way as those simple stripes from 4, where to make this the circle with the cross, we do a circle and hit stroke, say however many pixels you need, and that's going to be, now this is blurred already because of the feathering, but you get the idea. Okay, we're going to remove the highlights and shadows. Those are all put in manually, and let's focus on the handle, because this is something that, while it looks complex, it really isn't. I'm going to make a new layer here real quick. This is done the exact same way. You'll notice that the handle is at an angle. Okay, so Alt Delete. Another new layer on top of that. So we have black and white. Move that down. Now I'm making it bigger than it's actually going to be. And again, with this, you make your selection around it. This will keep it all in one layer. Say if you like hit M and use the marquee tool, hit V for move, Alt Shift, and you just drag them out to where they need to be. You keep doing that. Now, I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but that's okay. Now, hit Control T for free transform. If you hold down Control, you can do anything you want with this. So we're going to tilt it at an angle, double click Enter. We take our layer beneath. Now if you hold Control and inside the thumbnail click, it'll give you tight selection, right? Control Shift I inverts the selection. Now we can grab our black stripes. Control X cuts it. We're set. You build yourself out one of those. Control E, merge it down. We're going to cut off our ends. Control X, drag the box, Control X, and this is how we get started on these. Like I said, I did make it bigger so you can see it contrast, so it didn't just blend in. Now, one of my preferred methods for making these, I have the same handle I've used on quite a number of these. I'm going to zoom in real tight here. On our UVW map, we're going to make a nice tight selection around the handle. Control C, copy, Control N, new image, Control V. That is the exact dimension we need. You'll notice this little bit of green here, a little bit of green there. That has to be included because that's what gets red as well. It's not just this hard edge line, but that second layer past it. Zoom out. So then what we would do, I believe 34, yeah. Oops. Okay. Let's take 34 and stretch it out. Again, using the Alt-Shift method. Control E. What you basically want to do with this is Control T, snap it to the end, have it run the full gambit. Now, I've scaled this lengthwise. One of the things we have to be cautious of is if this anti-alias is here and becomes semi-transparent. If you have to scale something too far in any direction, your edges are going to become semi-transparent. So what I'm going to do with this is make a duplicate layer, and I'm going to see if these change color when I do that. A little bit. Okay, so I'm going to hide the bottom layer, fit on screen, Control E, select all, Control X to cut it, Control V to paste it, and I'm going to paste it about 6 or 7 times on top of itself. This guarantees that's solid again, except in things like, which one was it? CS3 and 4 and 5, we're having issues with that. Control Shift E will merge visible. Now we can turn this back on. Alright. Normally I don't use guides and rulers. I find them to be annoying. But in this case, if you're going to do this, Control R turns on your ruler. If you hit V so you're on the move tool, just reach up into the ruler part here, click and drag down, and it will snap onto the top of that. You now have a ruler. This is completely independent, or not a ruler but a guide. Snap. What we're doing is this gives it the angle. Control T. If we can see it, nope. I'm going to double click enter and zoom in. Control T. Now I should be able to reach it. Right there. I put this on top. The other side, the top is still right here. Enter. Nice. Nice distortions. On screen. We can take our ruler and just drag it off, and it's done. Don't worry about that edge, we can remove that. Come down here, make sure your marquee tool or your selection tool is not not feathered. You come one pixel down, all the way to the end, click. You can click outside your image on here. Control X. There we go. Okay, fit on screen. Now, that's going to be our silver layer. V. We don't want it to run the same direction because this looks boring. So we go Edit, Transform, Rotate 180. Oop, wow. Edit. Oh, I screwed up. Transform, flip horizontal. This, I should have done this beforehand. Wait a minute. It hasn't changed, it just distorted. I guess I didn't drag it far enough. Okay. I'm going to offset that. I went ahead and held down Alt and Shift, Control E. Now I'm going to hit Control U, colorize, give it yellow, 36, and that should work. Before I put these together, I want to have, I'm going to double click, I'm going to have a bit of a shadow. We're going to hit Inner Shadow. Now this might screw with the edges, it doesn't matter at this moment. Distance, set that to 0. You don't need to worry about the global light. In most cases with something like this, just hit 90. That's dependent. If you're doing eye textures and stuff, yeah, set it to 90. Something like this, it doesn't matter. We're going to turn our choke up enough to get it a little bit darker. And that up 1. Nope, there. Now we'll take the other one. Do that to this one. Inner shadow. Again, I'm going to leave that alone. Yeah, that looks good. Hide the wireframe. Now with these the way they are, Control Shift E, merge visible, Control T, and I'm going width only to get rid of this, the shadow that's at the end. 4 will do. Alright. Alt Shift, drag down. Alt Shift, drag down. And you see the repeat starting. There's your wireframe handle. Control Shift E, and then you'll notice that it looks like it's semi-transparent there. It may be. Duplicate layer. Yep, certainly is. Let's just make a couple of duplicates real quick. It seems to work pretty well. So that's how we get those done. Fit on screen. This was done with a brush. This is actually a piece of braided hair. These were just smudged in using a mouse and drawing. Tried to follow designs that were from original artwork, stone sculptures. I tried to reproduce them here. Actual pixels, zoom out. Let's fit that on screen instead. So again, dark blade, this shiny gold. Get rid of this one. This is our normal map, so our gold looks raised up here, and same with the handle. Get these closed. Here's our environment mask set beside the specular. Ignore the fact that this still has color on it, doesn't make any difference. These two are almost identical. Now what we've got for like the lettering, you'll notice that this is steel. I always make rules for various brightnesses for different types of metals. So our steel is at one set brightness. Our softer iron, that would be the inlay, is at another brightness. And if I open it again because I closed it too quick, not even worth looking for. I'll show you on the next one. This is not even visible on the diffuse. This is strictly in the specular and in the environment mask. Now you notice the environment mask looks completely different from the specular. The specular gives the sheen, the environment tells it what to reflect as far as environments, and this is going to give a completely different look. It gives an old hammered, grungy, not as well polished as the outside edge, and then the iron inlays do not reflect. Another version that I had done for my update 1J that's coming up, hasn't been released yet, is, I believe I called it either Heart Thief or Heart Biter, I don't remember. This is done very simply. I swiped my Ulfbert handle, dragged it into the corner of this one, hit it with unsharpened mask to make it stand out a little bit more, and then adjusted the UVW map to fit it. These are all just done with drawing selections and making, doing the stroke of a selection, and then cutting out what I don't need, then drop shadowing, giving bits of highlights. The little swirls are done so they look like they're engraved with inner shadow and outer glow. There we go, here's one. I just drew a piece like here, following old Celtic designs, old Norse designs. Hit stroke. This originally had a selection that came out like this, and then I just cut out what I didn't need and smudged up what I needed. If we take a look at what this has got, our drop shadow, our inner shadow, and our inner glow. And the reason we're using both, the inner shadow gives an overall hue of dirt and filth. The inner glow, which is a slightly tighter design, will show up as just a tad bit of a highlight. Our normal map is a little more depth, a little bit more contrast on the highlights and shadows, and does have this crud and dirt in the cast areas. And then our specular map again does the sheen. You'll note that on this one, all this dark right here, this is the shadowing for the crossguard, and I'll show you that in a moment. You'll note that that is not on the diffuse. The diffuse only has its base down here. I didn't even bother. This is cutting out the sheen where this part here overlays. I'm really hoping that this plus sign cursor shows up that's in there. Also on here, I did the pattern welded metal design. It doesn't exist in the diffuse. This is the diffuse. Just a scrubby layer. The normal map, not at all, nice and smooth. And on the specular map, we have our unpolished areas that we can't reach, that are underneath the crossguard, and we have that. Once exported, rendered in a game engine, we get this effect. This is straight up out of Skyrim. Threw it on the ground, took a screenshot, cut it out of the screenshot. So this is what we end up. And it makes it fairly convincing. The handle looks like a wire wrap. It has all the depth, even though none of this exists in the actual model. It's all done with the highlights, contrasts, and normal map. And then you can see how strong this, I actually had to tone it down after I took the screenshot, how strong this stood out. It now looks more blended in as opposed to something that's like just pasted on. But then as you go down the blade, you can see the different polishing qualities. You're just trying to get that look to add a little more life to it. And then the areas that don't shine, where you normally wouldn't be able to reach to polish. Alrighty, I should probably call it good for this one. Hopefully this helps. See you guys in the next video.